Narayana Guru defines the self. Verse number 27. Sitting in the dark, that which knows is the self. What is known then assumes name and form, with the psychic dynamism, senses, agency of action, and also action. See how it all comes as Mahendra magic. When we look at a deck of tarot cards, it begins with the card symbolizing the fool and ends with the magician. Along the way from the fool to the magician, we come across various representations of life, including even the judge and death. Like that, our life also begins as an untutored fool and ends in the wonder of magic, Jalam. In this verse, the Guru is equating the self and the world to a grand magic. Here, the magic is in the way things are experienced. When we experience things, they are there, and when we do not experience them, they are not there. Ultimately, we cannot say whether they are or are not. They are, otherwise we would not experience them. But at the same time, they are not. If they really existed, they should continue, but they don't. That's a great magic. At one moment, two lovers hug each other and whisper in each other's ear how much they care and what wonderful love they are having. In the next moment, they behave like strangers. Everything said up to then no longer has any value. They cannot even remember it. Then again, their mood fluctuates and changes. They are willing to bury everything for a new deal, and so on and on. The magician comes with his 5 children for entertainment. He is the mind itself, and his children are the 5 senses, onlookers as it were. Together they start a big magic show. The senses are really more like angels than children, so they are called Indriya, a name derived from Indra, the shining one. Even though the eye, for instance, is made up of inertial matter like skin, water, and nerves, which by themselves have no ability of knowing anything, the eye is sensitive to sunlight, and it can clearly see everything. It is like a deva, a luminous angel. So all 5 senses are called indriyas or devas. Mind is a superluminous thing that sees what the eye sees, hears what the ear hears, touches what the hands touch, smells what the nose smells, and tastes what the tongue tastes. In addition, it is capable of producing all these effects even when the senses are out of commission, such as in a dream state. Thus mind is called Mahendra. Maha means great, and Indra means that which brings ideation. This Mahendra in us, the mind and the senses, is producing the world jugglery, the world magic. Everything we experience comes within the scope of this magic. If we go backwards from the effect to the magic of its cause, the first thing is, of course, the magic itself. Behind it we see the senses and the mind. When we examine the mind, we see that we experience everything as a series of events. All kinds of activities are going on. Somebody is running, walking, sitting, talking, coming to you, having interactions, loving and hating. One of the main features of this magic is endless activities, karma. Behind each activity, you can sense yourself as an actor. I talk, I look, I see, I do. And doing all this either pleases or displeases you. I am very happy to see this. I am ashamed of this. This is horrid. I am getting bored. I don't want anything. I want all this. Someone is going on shouting all the time, I, as the actor, the knower, and the enjoyer. It is always the same, I, but the emphasis changes to accommodate the various angles. The actor, the knower, and the enjoyer have their negative aspects also. I am not the actor. I do not know. I do not enjoy this. So the I takes roles and denies roles, which leads to questions of identity. In an action situation, you either identify yourself or you do not identify yourself with it. So just who is this I, which clamors and makes so much noise? When you scrutinize it, you will find that its nature is consciousness, and that consciousness has a centralizing notion, where I is throbbing all the time. It is an I consciousness, aham vritti, that is affected by whatever is going on. There is an affective ego, an affective I consciousness, engaged in this grand magic. When we look further at this I consciousness that engages in activity, feels pleased or displeased, wonders and gets frightened, we are amazed to see that it is not just one static, identical consciousness functioning as all this. It is much more like a stream of water. In the stream of consciousness, before the I consciousness decides upon something, it moves around, propounding arguments. Endless arguments are going on within it. This is such and such. This is related to such and therefore such and such. There is a judging quality, and affectivity comes only as a consequence of it. Before it decides what a thing is, its affectivity is not yet decided. Whether it is going to be positive or negative, painful or pleasurable, is held in abeyance. This is the stream of consciousness as it is used for reasoning. When we look into it, we see there are hundreds of memories, associated ideas, everything of the past recalled in order to understand the present situation. After these are recollected and used to identify something, they don't disappear. They go back and hide where they were before, so they can be used at a later time. Thus, an affective judgment is coming as a consequence of active reasoning. Active reasoning is facilitated by a series of memories and memory recall. Something is stimulating this memory recall, these questions and affectivity. There is a compulsion to judge, to compare, recollect, examine. That compulsion is called manas or mind. Where does this compulsion come from? It is like the fool of the tarot. The fool does not know anything, but it wants to know. We begin not from the magician's magic, but from the fool who is crying out, asking, "What is this? I don't know anything. Tell me, please." The fool comes in the form of an interrogation on the surface of consciousness. Consciousness itself is frothing out like a white foam made up of many tiny bubbles. The bubbles are coming up from the depths of the unconscious. If we try to look beyond these bubbles rising up into consciousness, it becomes very frustrating because we cannot see anything clearly there. One idea bubbles up, is examined and lived out, and then perishes. Even before it perishes, another idea is already in the mind, enlarging, growing into an activity, an effectivity, and then it also is forgotten. As these come sequentially, one after another, you can definitely distinguish what was, what is, and what will be. It is played out in a time sequence. So there is not only mind, there is also time. There is a vastness in which what sequentially arrives is all placed in various ways, either one above the other or besides each other, or three things put in a triangular relationship, or intertwined or even separate. For all these, space is required. The time operation is functioning within space. So there is a time-space continuum. Within the time-space continuum, individual bubbles of interest are coming and bursting into meaning. Meaning is registered in the form of a language symbol, such as a name. Once we have left behind the stage of the newborn, the fool, no ideation comes into the mind without its being presented with a label, a name. And when you call out a name, a corresponding form comes to mind. Seemingly out of nowhere, all these factors, all these categories have come. Names and forms, time and space, actors and action, the doer, knower, and enjoyer, and the interrogating faculty, memory, judgment, and affectivity. Let us go to the prime source which has produced all these. We don't know where they all came from. So all this knowledge is resting on non-knowledge. Or, as someone once described it, there is a cloud of unknowing. It is from the heart of the cloud of unknowing that all this knowing is happening. Is it total unknowing? We cannot say. If there was total ignorance, how could all these things come? We see them clearly, so the light with which we know them must have come from that cloud of unknowing. Behind the cloud of unknowing is an all-knowing principle. It is never known as itself. It is known as all this. When it spreads out in this fantastic way, we experience it all, from the naive questioning of a fool to the final elucidation of a magician. If you consider all this as one total effect, then it is complemented by its cause. What causes all this? Self-luminous Atma, or the self-luminous Atma itself, is not known, but its effect, all the pluralities of the phenomenal transformations and modifications that come into being, is all we see. What is not known, while what is not is known. Hence it is called the great magic. Spiritual seekers are struggling to demolish all this magic and find the magician. But when the magic is demolished, you still do not see the magician. The magician is. That's a certainty. But you don't know him as a magician when he is not playing his role. Thus, we take away the possibility of knowing the source by merely denying the phenomenal. The being is to be known in the becoming, and becoming is known because of its beingness. The Guru has given here the two aspects of a non-dual reality. It is non-dual, and yet it contains a duality. The dual aspects are the pure self that hides in the dark as an unknown entity, and the so-called non-self, consisting of this grand magical world of names and form, placed in time and space, where there is a centralized I identity, which is asking questions, recalling memories, making judgments, and assuming roles, and thereby getting into various peripheral identifications. This is highly paradoxical. The non-self should be the not known, but it is the known. The self, the knower of everything, is not known. It is as if it is sitting in darkness. At least once in a while, you should move away from the grand magic of your life, sit quietly, and ruminate, and try to penetrate beyond the cloud of unknowing. You are seeking to know what is luminous there, which casts its shadows in so many ways here. This is the eternal theme for the contemplative. Occasionally he revels in the magic, but all the same he knows it is magic, and so he is not fully satisfied with it. He is fully satisfied only when he knows the manager behind the curtain, who is also himself. This is the grand theme of this verse. And the free translation of verse 27 is as follows. The self is that knowledge which brings illumination to one's existence, even when it is placed in the thick of darkness. The same knowledge assumes names and forms, and engages in action, equipped with mind and senses, for all the world like the miraculous performance of a magician.